Wait a
Check this
few
out.
more
I'm gonna
minutes
show you
and
how I
then we're going to
afforded
be
this
getting
car.
started.
Okay, you
About
ready?
5 minutes
All right,
after.
$118 for car insurance. That's how much I was paying.
Sorry.
Okay, I picked up the car.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for our first official town hall meeting. So we have a agenda here. And so first and foremost, I just want to welcome you in the spirit of unity. We appreciate you for attending today. And we do have a link in the chat that you can click on to this webinar, and so you can just share that with as many people as you want to share it with this evening, so they can join us as well. All right, and so we're gonna have Brother Siphiwe deliver his address to us to reinforce all of the communications he has previously posted in our various groups. And so our theme tonight is the past, the present, and the future. I'm sorry, what's next for the future for the African Diaspora 6th Region Assembly? We have disabled the chat, so it's turned off. But actually what you can do, you can still post questions, because we're going to have a Q&A at the end of this at the end of this webinar. And so you can ask your questions. It'll go directly to our host. And so we will be answering your questions at the end of this. Okay, so with that being said, I would like to introduce Brother Siphiwe. And so the floor is yours.
So in Sumba, greetings everyone. Thank you for attending. And you should know it's 1 a.m. here in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. So Representative Cecile Johnson and I have prepared our statement, which she is going to read, and then afterwards we will address any questions.
Is that okay? Grand Rising, everyone. I know you're all bright and chirpy. So I'd just like to say, this is in response to how the meeting was posted, right? The past, the present, the future. And I felt it was important that I say something. I came to see Brother Siphiwe so he could also talk. So we arrived in Ethiopia on February 8th and February 9th, and the AU ECOSAC side events began Monday on February 10th. This was entitled ECOSAC Civil Society Pre-Summit Symposium on the 2025 African Union Theme of the Year, which is Justice for Africans and People of African Descent Through Reparations. During the session, we met with AU ECOSAC staff, right? We learned that they were forced to do a cease and desist when they learned of the diaspora elections, because they had received many calls from AU member states and diaspora groups who wanted to know if they had mandated this.
Slow down and read that paragraph again, please.
So during session, we met with AU ECOSAC staff. We learned that they were forced to do a cease and desist when they learned of the diaspora elections, because they had received many calls from AU member states and other diaspora groups who wanted to know if they had mandated this. As a result of concerns from member states and other diaspora groups, they were forced to issue the cease and desist. It wasn't anything personal. Our presence at the conference and our reflections when we spoke helped them to understand who we were and what we wanted, what we were trying to achieve. They felt we were sincere by coming to Addis and participating in their events and requesting dialogue with them. We explained the intent had not been to pretend we were the only diaspora group, but to hash it out, build amongst the diaspora, and speak with one voice. What resulted showed we were unable to speak with one voice. That's not a failure of our campaign manager, Siphiwe, but an indictment of us as a collective. Presently, we are in Ethiopia and attending the pre-summit events hosted by ECOSOC. And today we attended an amplified voice in Building Alliance for Reparatory Justice. That's the Pan-African Lawyers Union and African Judges and Jurists Forum. So this was a legal meeting. Here is where legal strategies for reparation are being formulated by civil legal society. A consistent comment was on the need for political will. Tomorrow, we have been invited to attend a planning session to set the agenda for the theme of the year. So now one of your elected representatives, as me, has a seat at the table, which is another victory for the campaign, right? So we've been meeting, we've been presenting. Other members of the diaspora have been here also, and they have been expressing, our concerns as it relates to how the diaspora has been kind of ignored. I think by the end of day one, they really understood how we were feeling, right? So for the future, what we know now is this: the PRC, that's the Permanent Representative Committee, has requested further consultation among the AU, right, and their member states, and AU ECOSOC on the draft legal framework for diaspora engagement. This means it will not be an agenda item at the General Assembly in a few days. Consequently, it will have to be brought up at the next General Assembly session in June or July. We're discussing with AU ECOSOC some alternative engagements, first of which will be a town hall meeting. And so we consider this a victory for the campaign, for it shows that AU ECOSOC willingness to reach out to the diaspora and share information. So it's no small thing that they're using the language of town hall, right? We will be informed when that will happen. So that's good for us, as they are now speaking directly to us. Africa is about relationships, and so the next couple of days we will continue to accept invitations to side events, explain our issue to people, and leave a positive impression of the diaspora. When we return, we will have more information and call that big tent meeting we've been talking about, and then we will collectively choose the way forward. So I hope that that explains what has happened. We know there's been a number of controversy. It's really sad, folks. We, the diaspora, have had 21 years. So it's been 21 years on two people's part, right? We felt we never got the guidance as protocols and what to do. And then we failed to collectively to come together in unity. We have so many challenges. That if we could focus on the fact that we need the unity to move forward, it would really be good. But as we're seeing from all the controversy that has happened since the election, that, there still is, there's a seed amongst us. Those of us who are activists a long time, we've seen this. We've seen where when something good happened, right at the end of the meeting, somebody created a disturbance. People will then leave with the disturbance and forgot all the good that was in the meeting, right? I'm asking all of you in the diaspora to rise to your better selves, to rise above all of this confusion. Do I look like I partake in confusion? Those of you who know me, I don't have time for confusion. We have time to do the people's work, right? And this sentiment that I'm expressing here was expressed to the AU, ECOSOC. We've met a lot of people who we're building alliances with, which is good, which is what we need. We, the diaspora, need to build alliance, but we also need to build alliance with the people on the continent, right? I don't think people really understand our story. So while we are fighting each other, what we really need to be doing is building relationships with each other, and that's the entire diaspora, including people on the continent, and getting them to understand what our issues are. Because our issues are a little bit different than theirs, you know, even though collectively, when it comes to reparations, we all have the same root cause, right? The same root. The invasion, the 1452 war against people of African descent launched by the Pope, and then the actions that have taken place till now. So in some of the conversations that they have, the jurists and others talked about, you know, they see that it's more than just that past. It's also what's happening to us currently. You know, when you look at our communities globally, the policies that the colonizer left many of us with during independence, and how that plays out today in the substandard life that many African Black people are experiencing. And so for us in the United States, we've expressed what's happening with us. We will continue over the next couple of days to do that one-on-one, build those relationships. Yesterday, I mentioned some things about African-centered curriculum. And a gentleman I had that sat beside me at lunch today, he said he went home, he was so sad. He said he had never, you know, heard, you know, what was happening to us, you know. So this is why I'm here. This is why he's here. This is why we're here. And it's been a blessing. And we know that the ancestors have walked with us because the meetings are just lining up, you know, and we're getting an opportunity. But that first day, we mended the fence. We spoke to them. They understood what we were saying, and we were able to have very good and deep discussion. You know, so I'm sorry that we're still having controversy, but that seems to be a pattern with us as people, and we're hoping that we can move beyond that and begin to really address unity. You know, move beyond the barriers with each other. All the diaspora groups that are out there, we need to come together. We need to come together, right? So I am going to stop talking now, and let Siphiwe also explain. We've asked that people continue to push the plebiscite. It really is very important, that plebiscite, pre-plebiscite questionnaire that we've put out. We ask that you really push that because it captures some very important legal points that will be important for us later on. So I'm going to ask Siphiwe to talk about that. I felt that it was important that I speak, but we sat and compiled and this my talking points, right? So it is a combined effort. But I really don't want you to be sad over there, right? As this is smiling on us. God is smiling on us, I would say, right? And that this effort is going to be rewarded, folks. You know, I know that we have moved into our time, and I really want you to be peacemakers, right? Don't get caught up in any, you know, whatever, right? People are out there, you know, carrying on. What is their motive? Our motive is peace. Our motive is that we want the diaspora to be heard. And they're acknowledging that, yes, the members of the diaspora are saying that. So that's a victory. We're being heard. We're being heard, right? So I ask that you continue to be peaceful. Share this video when the time comes so that others can hear what we had to say. And then I'm going to let Siphiwe now speak and explain anything else that you may want to know. So I thank you for coming today. Thank you.
All right, I'm just going to add a few comments and then we'll get to the questions. First of all, I spoke directly with William Carew, who's the head of the ECOSOC Secretariat, who wrote the cease and desist letter. And we both were able to understand what was behind our actions, things that weren't that I didn't know about AU ECOSOC and things that they didn't know about the campaign. That was a very fruitful meeting, right? And we really understood each other. One of the things that we learned was that they are subject to intense political pressure from the AU member states. and that the cease and desist letter had as much to do with that than anything that we were doing. We also spoke with the AU ECOSOC legal advisor, and there are things that they have told us in confidence so that we could understand. This is what you do in backdoor channeling, right? Things that AU ECOSOC can't say in public, and I can't either, right? But as a result of that, we got understanding. And this is the reason why they are saying, hey, we need to have a town hall meeting with your campaign and other stakeholders and other sections of the African diaspora. We now realize that as a result of all of this. So I wanted to at least touch on that. Tactically speaking, right, the Permanent Representative Committee, right, has recommended more consultations between AU ECOSOC state and AU ECOSOC and member states. So now the issue is, since that won't be taken up until the next General Assembly, what is going to happen in the next 6 months in terms of our engagement? I had communicated to them that our hope and our intention was that it would not just be consultants giving input, that we would be part of the AU ECOSOC General Assembly that is more than just being on the outside. And now they understand that. And I said very strongly from the floor that you cannot have a legitimate and complete theme of the year discussion without the sixth region being seated in AU ECOSOC. Everybody clapped and applauded, because the central focus of the discussions is what happened as a result of our trafficking as prisoners of war. That is the central and the starting point of the discussions, and the central point, even though it extends to colonialism and the current harms. And so we had made the point that on all these panels and in all these discussions, right, if we, the ones who suffered the trafficking and the enslavement, are not on the panels at the table, then in the same way that our elections weren't truly representative, neither will AU ECOSOC. And so I think they understand that now. They were very genuine in wanting us to be involved. And now they are working to speak to us directly. So that is a victory from the campaign. All right, so let me land there, and then we'll just take the questions now.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for those updates. We greatly appreciate it. So we're gonna move on to our Q&A session of this meeting. First question we have in the chat is, have we considered developing an elder council or intergenerational council support and help resolve this and future issues internally as they arise?
Okay, so that has been suggested by some people that are in the groups. That is outside the campaign objectives, and that is something that I believe is a legitimate agenda item when we have the big tent meeting, where we will collectively decide the way forward, which will include analyzing what it is we need to do better, particularly with conflict resolution. So I think the answer is that has been raised as an issue. I know that people find that very important, and that will be an agenda item when we have that big tent meeting.
All right. All right, so we're going to move on to the next question. This one says, hi. Oh, hi. Okay, the question is, did they identify the member states that forced the cease and desist?
No, we asked them that question and they said we can't do that, but they wanted to give us some understanding and of what the nature um, what the nature of the situation is, why the framework is not being passed right now. So, but no, they did not tell us which states it was.
Okay. This is the second part of this question. Was there stated the path to the sixth region recognition?
The path is AU ECOSOC cannot do anything until it is approved by the member states, which is why the draft framework had to be submitted to the Permanent Representatives Committee, which prepares the agenda for the meetings. When the Permanent Representative Committee approves an agenda item, it then goes to the Executive Council, which begins meeting on the 13th and 14th. The Executive Council consists of the foreign ministers of each of the member states. The Executive Council finalizes the agenda and then it goes to the General Assembly for discussion and vote. So the PRC did not, the policy is for there to be consensus. And since there was not consensus, not all the member states, right? AU ECOSOC was very hopeful. There's a lot of support, okay? Overwhelming support, but it's not consensus yet. So the PRC felt that the best thing to do was to have further consultations with those member states that aren't ready yet to accept it.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. We have another question in the chat, and it reads, does the AU and ECOSOC understand, just like in the continent, there can be disagreements, divisions, and those that work willingly or unknowingly to sabotage progress? Do you think that they will hold the division against us? And if there is a letter sent from other groups to invalidate the elections, will that hurt our case?
Okay, so the answer is yes. They suffer the same internal division among the AU member states. And officers in AU ECOSOC suffer the same kind of experience that I, as a campaign director, have suffered, right? We found common ground on that. They complained about, people questioning their motives from both sides, from the diaspora side and from the members' side. As I had stated in the beginning of this campaign, this was a test to see if the diaspora could, given this very short window and opportunity, right, could we hash it out amongst ourselves, choose representatives, and speak in one voice? Had we been able to signal that kind of unity, it would be a completely different experience and outcome. And we weren't able to do that. This actually is not the first time that an attempt was made to hold election, and various groups in the diaspora who were in opposition to the elections sent letters to AU ECOSOC. And so as a result, they were like, it puts them in a position that they don't want to be in, where they have to say, well, this is, we chose this group and not that group. So it's nothing personal, right? We literally invalidated ourselves, right? So that's a learning lesson for us as a collective. when we actually complete the assignment of hashing it out amongst ourselves, regardless of our differences, and stop sabotaging each other and say, look, getting 20 representatives seated is more important than all these other things. So when we actually are able to do that, however, at this point, it will behoove all of us to sit down collectively and say, the draft legal framework, there's a good chance that it will come in June or July. And the purpose of the town hall meetings is for us as the diaspora to be in conversation with the AU ECOSOC to work together so that this problem, this vacuum, this lack of a mandate, the lack of the mandate is not something that happened with this particular issue. And we communicated to them and they acknowledged that the vacuum created by the lack of a framework over the past 20 years is what has created the competition, the lack of unity, is the vacuum in having the mandate. So they acknowledge that. So the town hall meetings, the conversations with AU ECOSOC between now and when it's raised at the next General Assembly, right? If we behave maturely, can be positive, fruitful, and eliminate this problem after the framework is adopted. All right, next question.
Okay. All right. So our next question is, how do you handle protest from those that can or won't attend the Big Tent Town Hall meeting?
How will we handle protests? We are simply going to just do what we continue to do. Good faith effort, put out all the facts, invite everyone, right? And challenge everyone to say, look, right? The test is, are we going to learn how to hash it out amongst ourselves? Once Cecile and I come forward after this all plays out, we have all the information, right? Then the elections are in limbo at this point. They're not recognized by the AU, but the campaign and our effort has been. Okay, so we are waiting. We're not making any decisions. As far as protests, well, people are free to do that. And we just got information today that Canada is now withdrawing its elected representatives for good reason. It wasn't as strong as the other regions. It wasn't as broad. Other reasons as well. So again, the campaign was not an institution or a democratic organization or an effort that was based in consensus. It was a campaign led by a campaign director, and we were looking for campaign supporters. And so the way things had been handled were, if you support the campaign, great, you are part of that 400 to 600 that we need. If you don't support the campaign, then you don't need to be in the campaign. Okay, we were looking for people who are with us. We weren't looking to be in a debate with people about the campaign objectives that were already decided. And so people took it the wrong way. When we realized that there were people in our midst who didn't support the campaign, we were like, okay, you don't have a place in this campaign because you're just creating roadblocks and barriers to getting to the objective that we were very clear with. We know that rubs some people the wrong way, but this wasn't an open think tank. It wasn't an open discussion forum. It was a campaign to achieve clear objectives. So after this, the answer, to go back to the question, how will the campaign handle protests? There won't be a campaign after this. This is the purpose of the Big Tent meeting. It will no longer be run under the authority that launched it, because now we have an assembly that will collectively decide the answer to that question. Going forward, protests will be handled in such a way. All right, next question.
Okay. So the next question is, what are the delegates going to do within this time while waiting for the new chairman of the AU?
Okay. I'm not sure what you mean by delegates. I think, you mean the elected representatives?
That's what I'm assuming too.
Now,
Yeah.
what will the elect? So as far as I know at this point, right, we have elected representatives from US and Europe that are united and working together. I'm not quite sure about the representatives from the Central American region, and that's it. All right. So what they will do, they still have a mandate from the people. So those representatives will be accountable between now, all during this process where we have these town hall meetings with AU ECOSOC, and until that framework is adopted, they are what we said, they are the provisional 6th region representatives who have a mandate from the people who voted. So they will, the way I understand it, and this is what we are going to discuss tomorrow and the next couple of days with AU ECOSOC, is what role they will play in the direct communications with AU ECOSOC over the next 6 months. So we don't have a more solid answer for that because we haven't finished the mission here yet, right? So they recognize and they consider the fact that we told them 1,254 votes were cast. There were over 800 and some people in the USA sub-region, 500 and some people in the Central American region, 200 and some people in the European region. By the time we add up all of that, we let them know that we had mobilized and we had an act. There are representatives that could credibly claim that they were representing more than 2,000 people. And they had made an announcement about the number of, they were, AU ECOSOC this was the first time that they've had such large participation in a meeting. All their platforms and the attendance. So as a result of the campaign, there's a lot of people that were now paying attention and they acknowledge that. So we are a significant stakeholder. But the details of what role they will play, whatever information is communicated directly from AU ECOSOC will be delivered by the representatives to the assembly that elected them. Next question.
All right. That was awesome. All right. So next question is, do we have the percentage of member states not wanting to consent thus far prior to the meetings this week?
I was told specifically that I was told in confidence not to comment on that.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on to the next question. Is there a follow-up?
And the reason why is because of political issues and the political pressures. So I can't say anything more than that.
Okay. Understood. Next question is there a follow-up clarification letter as a result from the cease and desist to eliminate further diffusion for the 6th region?
So I believe it was 4 letters were written as a result of the cease and desist. So the answer is, yeah, there were follow-up letters that were already written. If the question is there going to be any more follow-up letters? I don't think we need them at this point because we're talking directly to AU ECOSOC and we have an understanding and a working relationship now.
Like the things that people can do out there who are understanding what's happening here. That blog that Siphiwe did, where he put that first letter, that first letter that people who intend to harm us in the diaspora are putting out. Well, there were some other letters. So in that blog, there's a first letter, then there's a second letter, And there's a third letter, there's a fourth letter. Folks, we got to read. Be pushing that. If people want to understand more, they have to read. They have to read.
Yeah.
Right?
All the communications between me and AU ECOSOC before coming to Addis Ababa have been publicly posted in chronological order, right? So people are talking about the cease and desist letter, which happened in November. Now, for anyone to think that someone serving as a regional coordinator, that I wouldn't prepare them on how to handle the questions related to the cease and desist letter, and that they would serve for more than 2 months without being aware of it, that just doesn't make any sense. So why some people are, and some of the coordinators that were appointed are now using the cease and desist letter, right, as a way to scare people and distance themselves from the campaign when they didn't do it 2 months ago when they knew about it, is a question I think that the coordinators need to answer. Next question.
Okay, well said. Next question. Will our elected representatives continue to provide leadership for our community through this process?
Yes,
Mhm.
because again, the assembly was an autonomous, self-determined effort, right? Those who participated, right, voted to have provisional representatives who would, one, pursue being seated in AU ECOSOC, and two, prepare themselves to attend the ACHPR, that's the African Commission on Human and People's Rights Roundtable, that was mandated in their Resolution 616 and is scheduled for May. So is what we call a fait accompli. An organization, bringing together a body in this assembly has produced something that exists now, which is a constituency with elected representatives. So the answer is yes, they will have a role to play in guiding the big tent meeting and what happens after that.
All right. Next question. Once we have the big tent meeting, will ECOSOC conclude or require all groups participation for everyone to move forward?
I can't speak for ECOSOC, and we asked them. ECOSOC wants us to champion the draft framework and help us lobby for it to get those AU member states that aren't on board. And my response to them was, it's going to be difficult to get us to champion something that we haven't seen. We don't know what's in the framework. Their response is, well, now that it's at the PRC, it's an internal document that has protocols about when, it can't be shared. It's internal business of the African Union. So we will see. They let us know that what they want to see happen is different from the stance of AU member states. But they have to follow what the AU, so they are recommending things. And I asked them questions, for example, about how are you planning to handle this issue where you have those members of the African diaspora that have moved from their home countries like Ghana and Nigeria, they live in the West, and they have access to AU ECOSOC through their home countries, who may be running to get one of these 20 seats. I asked them, do you think that that's fair, considering that we are from the Afro-descendant category of the African diaspora, which is a different group. We are the ones, right, who have no link to any home country and have no representation. He couldn't go into the details, but he said, yes, we're aware of that and we've addressed it. And he indicated that we might be pleasantly surprised at how they are going to resolve that. But he couldn't tell us how they are going to resolve it. So I've forgotten exactly what the question was now, but that information needed to get out. Did I answer that question, or do you need to read it again?
Oh, yeah, they were saying, once we have the big tent meeting, will ECOSOC require all groups participation for everyone to move forward?
Again, we can't answer for them. Will they require all groups? I don't know about that, but once the draft framework is adopted, right, it will remove the main source of the problem of us trying to elect representatives. Everyone will know exactly what it is and how what is expected and how we're supposed to go about doing it. So between now and then, what our job is to do is to prepare ourselves by setting up these groups, these forums, and inviting as many people in. This is the embryonic, natural, organic coming together and structure, right? Where we can, all those who want to participate in this, we should understand that we should have kind of one vessel for doing it. Now, if we keep setting up different vessels and different groups and they keep fracturing and splintering, all right, at some point they're going to need to come together, and that'll probably happen once there's a draft framework. But we don't have to wait for that to happen, right? We can do that work on our own.
I'd like to add something there. Our job as all concerned people, right, whether you're elected representative or not, is that we need to unite the diaspora, right? Those who know me, when I was a part of WADU, World African Diaspora Union, we spoke about this in 2012. We spoke about this, right? When I became aware of this sixth region and what was being done and all of that. And one of the reports at that time was that the biggest problem that they had was with the people in America, right? And our failure to come together. Now we're about 47 million African descendants in the United States. 47 million, that's a lot of people. And yes, we have different groups. So I would just say that we are peacemakers at this point, right? We understand the big picture. We understand that we want representation at AU ECOSOC in the future. And so in order to get that, whether it's us or others, as long as these representatives are people who will represent the interests of the diaspora, then let us please try and build some unity amongst ourselves. In the next couple of months, I see my role as someone who will begin to have more conversations, right? And begin to have more conversations with others so that we can come to an understanding. What is our common interest? What can we agree upon? Because our infighting has us sitting on the sideline 20-something years later, right?
And you know what's important? When we had the meeting with the head of the ECOSOC Secretariat and their legal advisor, we explained to them, and they finally understood and acknowledged that because of the accelerated short time frame, that was a catalyst to push us.
Like we,
Siphiwe is frozen.
yeah, he's frozen. I think I heard something.
If you can ask him to cut off his video and see if that would help.
Oh, okay, Siphiwe, can you still hear us? I don't know if he can hear us or see us. You can.
There is a bit of problem. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
We're back.
Oh, there they go. Yeah,
You're
he's
back.
back.
If you can cut off your video for a second, because you're kind of losing you. might
All right,
help.
Yeah, that might
let me
help.
let me finish this point. It's a very important point.
Yes.
When AU ECOSOC brought up the issue of, hey, some of the stakeholders in the African diaspora are sending us letters, right? Our response was, and we were in the process of finally uniting them, right? All these groups that in the past weren't working together, they were coming in, and then we let them know it was the cease and desist letter that stopped that uniting process. That's when the confusion and the chaos started. And then they realized, that actually kind of shot everything in the foot, right? They shot themselves in the foot. We were doing the unifying work and it was working. And so this is what Representative Cecile is saying now. If we're going to learn from all of this, we got to stop sabotaging each other. We got to stop this crab in the barrel thing and understand it was the fact that it was a short time frame, that we had to get this done in 2 months. Otherwise, we're going to lose the opportunity that people were called to. Okay, this isn't important, that isn't important. Let's make honorable compromises and let's just get this thing done. It was working. The cease and desist letter was prompted by those who weren't ready to submit to that. Okay, next question.
Okay. So our next question is, what about people that Siphiwe removed in the group? Will there be a democratic process to deal with this?
I think I answered that, right? Again, the campaign was looking for campaign supporters. And when you see a campaign supporter, then why are you there? If you don't believe in the campaign, then you're free to go and assemble and do whatever you want, but don't bring contention and discord amongst the like-minded people who are working to in one accord to achieve what was already decided. So I think I've answered that. Next
Yes.
question.
Okay. Next question is, would there be elections in other regions?
So at this point, again, we still have consultations here with AU ECOSOC. We're not finished. There's more information that is going to come out. We're planning some of the reparations agenda for this year in that session, all-day session tomorrow. It will be for those other regions to decide what they want to do. I am not going to be recommending that they hold elections. I will be recommending that they build these WhatsApp groups, right? And get people in groups where we can discuss the importance of completing an election once we get the legal framework. And if we have people already mobilized for that, then we won't experience what we experienced in this campaign, because it will be, if everybody who's asking the question, was it mandated? Was it mandated? Who gave you the authority? We will have that question. So again, it's not from, I as the campaign director am not going to attempt to hold elections now as a result of what we have learned, but I do recommend keep building the groups. Try to get 1,000 people in each regional group, right, without all of the uncivil debate and discussion.
Okay.
AU 6 region is fine. All right, next question.
All right. So who is going to send out the invitations to the town hall? Will there be a support indication from ECOSOC on the invitation to eliminate attempts to discredit?
AU ECOSOC did not go into details of when they're going to hold the town hall meeting or how they're going to organize it, and what way they're going to communicate it. So we can't answer that. This is why we want to wait and see what else comes out of our meetings the rest of the week.
So just to be clear, that's 2 different town halls. One that we're doing when we return, right? Because we went and we did certain things for the diaspora, and we're coming back to tell you what happened. Then we're going to talk about where we move, how we go from there. So that's one.
Yeah, so there will be a campaign town hall, and then there will be an AU ECOSOC organized, led town hall for us.
The whole diaspora, because now we're in conversations with them. They realize that we, the diaspora, we, the collective diaspora, need more information. And so they've said that they're going to be better communicators. So that's a good, positive thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is more so of a comment versus a question. They're saying it would be nice for the delegate, well, the representatives elect to study the policies of AU ECOSOC and bring together the diaspora. So that's more of a
Yes, and I personally, and I know the other reps from North America, we've been really together about all of this, right? And we did note during the campaign that, once the dust had settled, then whatever training, whatever knowledge base we needed to increase, we were going to.
Yes.
So we will be increasing our knowledge base, people, and we encourage all of you to increase your knowledge base. Now, Siphiwe has done a number of blogs, and some people don't like to read. I happen to like to read because as a human rights defender, sometimes things are hidden right there in the stuff, right? And I would encourage people, right? We, the diaspora, become on the issues. I think that when we were speaking to them, not only did they see our sincerity, but they were very impressed with his knowledge. Them, he understood their process. He understood how the African Union worked, etc. So they knew that we were not lightweights in that way. We were genuinely concerned people who had taken the time to do our homework, right? And so I would encourage all of you that, yes, that's going to have to be part of something that the Assembly talks about, the knowledge base that we have to build amongst ourselves so that we are credible, so that when we sit at tables, people say, yes, these people are sincere in what they're doing. And we believe that representing you here, that we have conveyed that sincerity. I've had people come up and talk to me about these things, and they just have a better understanding. So we're doing that one-on-one, where we're talking to others, explaining certain things to them, and we're building the relationships. And anyone who knows what a campaign is, period, knows that that's what you have to do, right? We have to build the relationships, clear up any misunderstandings. And I see this as a great opportunity. Out of every negative, a crisis creates change. All crisis creates change, right? And so, okay, so now we know what the division is. We know who some of the divisors are. However, we're not going to let that, push us back. We know that if you don't agree with this, then the question would be, why not? Do you not want the diaspora to have representation with the African Union? Do you not think that as reparations is being discussed, that what we feel reparations should be a part of someone's agenda, right? Someone who is in that position of authority. And, I made it clear too that there's three diasporas. There are those who came before Columbus, those of us who came during the slave trade, right, who were enslaved, and those who came in the last few decades since independence from Africa, the Continentals. And that's the diaspora, right? And we all have different needs. For us in the United States, we even have greater needs because the issue of self-determination is a need for us too. So there's a lot of issues for us. And so, it's expected that we in the diaspora in the North America, in the US, will come together and see what our issues are, how we want to see reparations, those kind of things. And the same thing for those in Canada or South America and Central America. Central America has a number of Afro descendants, but they are like indigenous, right? The Garifuna people, even though they were moved there during this colonial period, they had actually been there from the 1300s when they were in St. Vincent and other islands. So the multiplicity of our of who we are right? It's like when you meet someone and you begin to talk to them about who you are, and each day you share a little bit more. That's kind of what we have to do, folks, even amongst ourselves, right? So we have to build those relationships, get to know each other as not only the representatives, but also as people. All these different groups who all have the same intent, they want to uplift our people. We just have to begin to have unity. Unity should be our word. That's what we need to do.
But to the question, the campaign made available to everyone the AU handbook, which is where you learn the AU structures, how they function. We also made available the ECOSOC statutes, and we emphasized the job description for AU ECOSOC representatives based in the statutes, and it was our hope that there would be a study group that would systematically go through these documents, right? In addition, I had already prepared resource guides like tracking the AU Diaspora Initiative, where every important document since the 1974 Pan-African Congress, all the way through the establishment of the AU and all of the documents for the Diaspora Initiative, all of that is compiled in one post that is a resource. So to that question, right, being conversant with the structures, the administration, and the development of the diaspora issues. Those resources are available. Obviously, of course, the representatives need to know that stuff, but everybody in this group should take leadership, because you all are the ones that will have to what? Educate the masses and bring them in one by one, two by two, organization by organization. So it's not just on the representatives, right? All of us should play a role in helping people understand the AU and what it does and how it works. Okay, next question.
All right. Is there a joint letter of the relationship of building that can be distributed to have participated in those who also have caused dissent?
I'm not sure I understand, but the answer is no, there's no joint letter. And I'm not quite sure what the joint letter would need to be said. There was the campaign election issued official election results, and then there was also a letter of dismissal to some of the regional coordinators. So there's no joint letter towards that.
All right. Next question is, does the AU ECOSOC respect the sixth region as an equal partner?
Does the AU that's, to me, that's a loaded question with many layers. All right. Again, the Article 3Q amendment invites and encourages the African diaspora to full participation in the African Union. Full participation means whatever the other 5 regions have, the 6th region has to have it too. And so now, after 22 years from that amendment, we are not officially a part of any structure. Does the African Union profess and officially declare that it is inviting and encouraging the diaspora? Yes. But Sister Cecile, Representative Cecile, will tell you that in some of the people they speak and they only have the continent on their mind. They only civil society in AU ECOSOC, they are referencing African citizens. And so when you hear them talk, immediately, if you're sensitive to this, you're like, well, what about us in the 6th region? We're not citizens. So the way what you just presented betrays that even though officially as an institution, you have opened the door for the sixth region, individuals may not have internalized that.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is why I can't speak for AU. I can give my impressions as someone who was there in the beginning and has been overseeing it. And I would say that there are well-meaning people within the AU, right, who understand the necessity of reuniting African people, because it was, especially in this year of reparations, it was one historical event. It was an invasion of African people. Some of those African people were taken and trafficked and enslaved, and others were killed and murdered on the continent, and those that survived suffered, right, colonialism. That's not three separate histories. That's one history of one group that had three different conditions put on them. So there are plenty of people within the African Union who genuinely, fully understand that justice, ma'at, and the African Renaissance that we want requires all of us repairing the damage from that war. Now, there are other people who I would call the comprador elite, okay, who want status and power, and who are not necessarily committed to making sure that no one is mistreated and those that need the most help get the most help. They're in it for their own personal reason, and some of them may feel threatened by the inclusion of the sixth region. We have to be honest and real. Amilcar Cabral said, "Tell no lies, claim no easy victories." The African Union as an institution is one thing, and those that have roles within the institution are another. So it's not as cut and dried as I think whoever asked that question may like that answer. We have to be honest about it. All right,
Absolutely.
next question.
Okay. Just to kind of acknowledge one of the previous questions, moving forward when it comes to our new WhatsApp community, I want everyone to know that we don't want to remove anyone. We want people to join us, and it's all about our voices being heard and being peaceful and just moving in love and unity. And so I just wanted to just put that out there for some of the participants here. We don't want to remove anyone from the community. We want people to join us. We want it to grow and want the community to grow.
Can I add something that we want to move in love, unity, and discipline? Okay, and everyone in those WhatsApp group communities is responsible for maintaining group discipline. That's important. So, if the reason we have so many different groups is so that those who want to talk about religion can talk about religion. Those that want to talk about citizenship can talk about citizenship. Those that want to talk about curriculum and education, that's the reason why they have been organized that way. So love, unity, and discipline.
Absolutely. 100%. Okay. So the next question is, I think some of these questions you've answered. And for some who maybe have joined us late, we will be providing this meeting is being recorded. And so you will be provided a link to the recording. It's going to be posted in our WhatsApp community. So just keep that in mind. You will be able to rewatch this at a later time. It said it was said that ECOSOC was building a relationship with the coordinators. Can a letter be coming out of this gathering that states that.
And a letter from who to who?
From ECOSOC about them building a relationship with the coordinators or the, I
We
guess,
can,
the representatives. I assume
we
that's
can
what they're
request, we can request something like that, certainly.
saying. Okay. All right. I think that's it. Someone says, perhaps we can set up something like a book club discussion group to learn from the AU information provided, or maybe like a study group like Siphiwe mentioned earlier. So that is definitely something that we intend on doing, setting up a study group. So great recommendation there. I think that's all the questions that we have in the chat.
So,
Yeah.
if there's no questions, I do remember that I was asked to touch on a couple of other important things. For example, the importance of the plebiscite survey.
Yes.
So, the plebiscite survey is intended to help us frame how we want reparations. Okay. The plebiscite survey is also intended to provide evidence that evidence the will of the people. What do they want included in reparations settlements? And it's also intended to provide evidence of the continuing harm from the original crime that is happening today, principally what we call ethnocide. Ethnocide is the destruction. Ethnocide is the legal term for the dehumanization. The things that make us human is knowing our place in the world, between heaven and earth, between God and man, our place in the world, right? We have an identity. We come from our mothers and our fathers, who come from their mothers and their fathers. So there is a lineage, there's an identity, an ancestral linkage that is part of traditional African identity. The trafficking of our ancestors who are prisoners of war, they were subject to a dehumanization process, right? To make us chattel, 3/5 human beings. So that process, the harm was, most of us no longer know who we come from. There are a series of questions on the plebiscite that asks, right, was your maternal ancestor do you know from where your maternal ancestor was taken from? That's a yes or a no. And then it asks where. So, for example, in my case, do I know where my paternal ancestor was taken from? The answer is yes. And the question where, he was taken from what is the territory currently called Guinea-Bissau. He's a Balanta descendant. If you can't answer that question, you put no. And so by having thousands of these surveys and showing, for example, 80% or 90% of our people still don't know their ancestral lineage, who they come from, is the evidence that the original dehumanizing process that your ancestor was subject to is still harming you, because your ancestor knew where they came from, but you don't. And now there's a question that asks, if the African ancestry DNA test was made available to you free of charge, right? Would you want it? Would you want to take it? If the data shows that 85 or 70 or 90 or whatever it is, if the data shows that there is a high demand for this, then this now becomes part of the reparations demand, saying there is an overwhelming demand to heal this particular damage called ethnocide. And there are treaties and platforms that say all scientific and technological progress has to be used for the benefit of humanity. Now, since the Durban Declaration and the world has declared what happened to our ancestors to be a crime against humanity, and arguably the greatest crime against humanity, that means that all the proper use of DNA testing is to repair that damage. That should be provided to us free of charge. If we show that there's evidence that we're still suffering ethnocide, there's a remedy for it in this testing, then we can say one of the first things we want in our demand to repair our peoplehood, to repair our, the internal repair, is this to be provided for us. So every single question on there is designed to help legitimize and frame reparations, the forms of reparations. It asks, if you have to choose among one of the following four, which one would you choose? Return to your ancestral homeland, build a sovereign nation of your own on territory currently claimed by the United States government, emigration to another country willing to receive you, or integration into American society. If you had to choose just one, not that after choosing it, like if you choose repatriation, you lose your American citizenship. No, the United States law already says, right, acquiring citizenship in another country has no effect on your citizenship status. So just because you choose, I want to return to my, doesn't mean you don't get those others, right? But we've never actually been asked, what do we want? All these decisions are being made for us, and we've never actually made the decision for ourselves. The process for deciding for ourselves what we want is a plebiscite. Now, to get to a plebiscite requires an amazing amount of logistics. My study of plebiscites in the world, there have been 114 plebiscites since World War II that have established more than 60 new nations. So don't think that this is something new or rare. It's not. Okay. My study of all of these 114 plebiscites shows that in order for it to be deemed credible or legitimate, right, there are exceptions to what I'm about to say, but generally speaking, you need an 80 to 85% participation rate, right? So that would mean if Cecile is accurate, 47 million of us, or let's say 50 million of us, of voting age, I've already looked at this of voting age. No, it's 30 something. 80 or 85% of the voting age would mean, let me turn my camera off, keep the bandwidth. Hopefully you can hear me good. To reach that standard of 80 to 85%, right, would mean 29 million of our people participating. That's a mammoth, a Hannibalian task. So imagine, for example, in the presidential elections, you got to take time off of work or school or whatever. You got to go to a polling place, right? People complain about our elections process, and it's just a civil society small election. Can you imagine the standards and what it would require to pull off, right, an actual plebiscite? Now, it's been done. Cameroon has something like 30 million, and they had a plebiscite that established the nation of Cameroon. Same thing in Togo. It happens, but there's a lot of resources. We have to demonstrate that we are ready to participate in a plebiscite. So one of the questions on the survey is, right, would you participate in a plebiscite that allows you to choose one of those four things? My last analysis of that shows that it was the one question that united us the most. It was something like 85 to 90%. Didn't matter what your education level was, what your financial status was, what your political, if you were Republican, Democrat, Independent, It didn't matter if you wanted to integrate into America, go to Africa, establish it. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. Something like 93% said I would participate in a plebiscite. So if we can show the international community, if we can show the African Union, particularly in this year when they're talking about reparations, that as part of the process, we want a plebiscite. We want the opportunity to decide what is best for our family. You may want to stay and integrate into America. Well, you're going to need resources for that. Somebody else may want to set up a new African nation of their own. You're going to need resources for that. Others are going to want to go to Africa. You're going to need resources for that. We need to show roughly with a significant sample size that this is the rough breakdown of the 47 million or the 29 million of voting age of what we want. So we're going to need resources for 6 million to go back to Africa, 20 million to integrate into America, 3 million to set up a nation of their own. This is how we frame reparations. And you, instead of somebody deciding for you, you get to decide. So that's why we're saying, and this is why Representative Cecile was saying, we've got to keep pushing that survey. This data has never existed before. And once we can show that it's a truly representative sample, my father once told me, right, without data, you're just another Negro with an opinion. We don't want to show up in international forums with ideas and opinions out. We want to demonstrate that we've done the work on the ground and this is the will of the people. It's not the idea of one individual who's claiming to represent the people. No, we want to say, no, we can show evidence that this is what the people want. So I just wanted to touch on that because I was asked to touch on why that's something important. So instead of us focusing on debate and discussion that doesn't get anything done, why not rally around this? It cuts across all of our divisions. Okay. I think that's it for me.
Well said. Well said. That was great. That was amazing. So one other comment was that someone mentioned that they think that the survey should be updated to state you are not giving up your U.S. citizenship if you select citizenship in an African nation.
Well, now that we have a few hundred results, we can't change this survey because it will mess with the data. We can explain that, or when you send a link to someone, we can put a little note or something like that. Yeah, I mean, we can put a note to kind of explain that. I think we can do that. But in terms of either adding other questions or changing the answers, that's what I meant to say. We can't add more questions or change the different answers, but we can put explanatory notes that kind of help clarify. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, that would be great. Someone's asking, how do we take the survey? So we have a link to the survey. Let me see. We have a link to the survey in our WhatsApp group. So you can definitely join our WhatsApp group, and it will be provided in that community. I think I posted, I'll see if I can get a link to the WhatsApp group for you, posted in the chat. So I think that is all of our questions for tonight. Yeah, I think that would be it. Oh, someone else has two questions. Portia, do you have a question? I don't see your question in the chat, but I see you mentioned that you had two questions.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm just waking up. Pardon my tardiness. May I pose two questions, or I don't want to be out of protocol? Pardon for my tardiness again. Thank you.
Yes, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, thank you so much. Greetings, elders, excellencies, human rights defenders all. I'm just waking up, and pardon again for my tardiness. My first question, and if it has been asked already, again, my
I think you're
apology.
supposed to put the question in the chat.
Yes, post in the chat. That would be great.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. If you can just give me a few moments to type, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Portia. All right. I will try to get a link to the WhatsApp group posted in the chat as well while we're waiting. Let's see here. Or if any of the other co-hosts may have
This is Cecile. I just want to say that, guys, we have to remember this, right? That our disunity has been orchestrated as part of U.S. policy. That National Security Council Memo 46, right? I've posted that many times. They fear our unity. So anytime your enemy fears your unity, that's what you need to do. We must unite. Now, I remember one of my elders telling us how in Michigan he would do something called a Sankofa Saturday. And so at the Sankofa Saturday was like a potluck. And members of the African community, the Caribbean community, the African American community, South America, whoever was there would come, they would bring a meal, and people would just sit and break bread. We in that time, folks, that's the kind of time we're in, where we have to get to know each other, right? So I would encourage you, we're very encouraged. That first day when we were able to talk to the AU ECOSOC people, when we were able to see other members of the diaspora. Jasmine Rao from SOAD gave a very, good speech, highlighting how she felt. That's the Rastafari in Shashamane 80 years later with no citizenship, right? Today we were in a workshop where there were some people who had, they were from the Belgian Congo and some other places that these people had been. And these were second generation, first generation. Their mothers had been raped when they had been raped and had children with these Belgian people, men. And so they talked about the impact of not, and then when the children had been sent away to Europe, to Belgium, they had even distorted their information, so they didn't know, they couldn't find who they really were and who they were related to. They lost contact with some of their mothers and definitely never knew their fathers. And it struck me, the power of a story. And I said to them, I said, wow, imagine your first generation not knowing who you are. Can you imagine? That's how we feel. It was multiple generations of not knowing who we are. And so I think it connected well with others.
It was so powerful when you said that. She, just to restate it, because I was struck when you said it. She had made the point. The panelists were saying that within 1 or 2 generations, these babies, they had lost their identity. And Cecile said, now you can identify and understand us. If you're lamenting and calling attention to the fact that within 1 or 2 generations, people are forgetting their African identity, can you imagine the damage that we have suffered? It's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 generations. That was the moment when some of the continental Africans in the room connected with our experience and our pain. It was one of the most powerful things said today.
Okay, so the questions have been posted. She asked, how will the data that is gathered be stored? I guess I could.
Right now, the data that is gathered, when you complete that the survey, I get a notification by email that the survey is complete with the answer, and it auto-populates an Excel sheet. That's how it is currently stored.
All
Next
right.
question.
Yes. Next question is, how can unity be achieved without addressing the recurring problems that are not stopping unity? That's the
Could you
question.
repeat that?
So it says, how can unity be achieved without addressing the recurring problems that are not stopping unity?
I'm not sure I understand that. I think every problem that has been raised,
Oh,
we have answered.
that is stopping unity. Okay, she changed it. Yeah, that's what she
Okay.
meant. That is stopping unity.
Read it one more time.
So she's saying, how can unity be achieved without addressing the recurring problems that is stopping unity?
Okay. Let me answer and then you answer because I think it's being addressed to me. I feel that every issue that has been raised has been addressed. Now, it might not be addressed satisfactorily to one person or another person, but it's not like we've ducked and dived and haven't addressed it. We may not all agree on some things. And there's a saying in the movement, right? Unity does not require homogeneity. It's not for, we are saying, or I am saying, that all issues will be addressed collectively once we call the big tent meeting, and the collective decides the way forward, whether it wants to constitute itself as a formal body, whether it wants to go some other way, and it will decide on what structures it wants to put in place to handle conflict. There is always conflict resolution. I have made myself available numerous times, repeatedly, in the chat, in town hall meetings. There's not a single time where I haven't made myself available and answered directly whatever questions put forward. It's impossible and unrealistic to expect that whatever is said or put forward is going to be accepted or agreed by every single person. Traditionally, we have had councils of elders to deal with that. We've had ethics committees and commissions to deal with that. As far as this campaign, the process was if it's serving the campaign in a positive way, right, then it's allowed. And if it's not serving the campaign, then it's not allowed. We are in a transition from moving from a campaign to something else. And so as long as people agree to the processes of that something else because it was decided collectively, then we can have that unity because everybody respects the rules or the principles that were collectively agreed upon. And that's the difference between a campaign and an organization.
All right. So we have our last two questions for this evening because we know that it's like really late there. I think it's like, what is it, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning where you guys are?
It's 2:30 and we have a 9:30 meeting.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so these will be the last two questions, and then we're gonna close up for tonight. And so they're saying, will our personal information in the survey be protected, and how?
Be protected?
Sure.
You have to tell me what kind of protection you mean by that or expected. So it's already protected. I don't share it with anyone, but are you referring to super high tech firewalls and things like that? I mean, come on, this is a grassroots effort. People are allowed to submit their surveys anonymously. You don't have to put your name or contact. So if you're concerned about that, then you submit it anonymously. That's the first level of protection.
Right.
Okay. question?
Next question is, what is the timeline of the big AU tent meeting again?
So it's not a big AU tent meeting because it's not being called by the AU. The campaign and its elected representatives will be calling the big tent meeting as soon as we can, following Cecile and my return, at the end of this delegation mission. So sometime as soon after the 17th, 18th, right, we'll announce the big tent meeting. As far as the meeting that's going to be called by the AU ECOSOC, we can't answer to that. They didn't tell us what time frame, how soon they're going to have that meeting. But we will ask them before we leave, what is their time frame, because we want to know as well.
Okay. All right. I think that will be it for tonight. That's our last question.
I do see one more hand up. Is Ja Musa.
Can he type
his question?
Oh, yes.
Ja Musa, type your question.
Okay. He does have a question.
Yeah, I
see it here.
just put
can
to
you-
the chair.
Yeah, I
just
have
put
it.
my
I see it in
question
the chat.
group.
Yeah, I see your question in the chat. I'll go ahead and read this post. It says, we need to put aside our differences and unify on food, clothes, and shelter, and have an economical base so we can take care of our own. We need to unify. It's a must. So it's more of a comment there. Yeah.
We appreciate that, Jamusa. Thank you so much. That is
Thank
the
you.
message we're giving here tonight, that we must unite and settle our differences. So I
Yes.
want to thank everyone for coming. I just want to personally say that we're happy. I feel at peace, right? Even coming, I felt a sense of peace come over me. And since we've come, the kind of love that we've seen, the sharing of the different participants, they've had very good turnout.
Yes.
Very good turnout. And they say they're getting a lot of, online comments, so people are participating. And so I think that, like I said when I started, the ancestors are with us and they're smiling because we're finally having the conversations that we need to have, and we're moving forward. So please do not let anyone disturb your peace, right? Be peacemakers and share this video. You asked, what can you do? You can share this video, right? And share any of the other supporting documentation that has been in our groups before. The survey, please get the surveys done, as well as the documentation that he had put out, Siphiwe had put out that letter, and then the correspondence that happened. But hopefully you will hear from us tonight that, we've come and we've mended the fence. That's what we came to do. We came to mend the fence. We've had human, real conversations, and we feel comfortable with that. And that's how you start a relationship, right? So we've started that relationship. And we feel comfortable about that because we're now going to an event tomorrow where we're actually going to help to participate in, the reparations conversation. So,
Not just the conversation, the setting of the agenda for the year.
right.
And we should all keep in mind, right, what we did was, if we remember, starting in 2020, right, we started emailing and sending specific questions to AU ECOSOC that weren't answered. And from that time, 2020, right, up till now, none of our requests were responded to. Okay, I'm a member of the NCOBRA International Affairs Commission. The national co-chair had delivered letters and invited these AU officials to come as a result of the Accra Proclamation, where the AU and ECOSOC said themselves they want greater participation from the diaspora on the reparations issue. So NCOBRA had invited these officials to come. We got no response. My point is 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, we kept asking for information, and they're not responding. It took this campaign
Mhm.
to finally get them to start responding. And so that is a victory. That is the proof is in the pudding. That is what has been produced. Now, as Cecile said, we have this relationship. She, as an elected representative, has a seat at the table to help set the agenda for this year. So we should all be reminding others that while you want to focus on the problems of the campaign, let's look at that achievement.
And this is really just civil society. So I'm not here in any false, pretense. I'm here as civil society. So when he says that we have a seat at the table, as civil society dealing with AU ECOSOC, we are having comments, we're having input. And that's what we wanted, right? So we're there. We're having input into setting the agenda, and they see us as credible people. They see us as knowledgeable people.
And I think that answers, I think there was one other question that answers the question about the fundraising and why we came in the first place. I think now it's evident that it was the right decision at the time, right? And it was well worth it. Now we have this relationship clarity, and they're going to come to us. AU ECOSOC is going to come directly to us as the 6th region and do these town hall meetings as a form of engagement, since we don't have the representatives seated in ECOSOC. So I think that's it.
Amazing. That is amazing. It's a great way to end the call for tonight, the meeting for tonight. We thank you all for participating tonight, for joining us on this, our first official town hall meeting. And of course, we will be having another meeting coming in the coming weeks once Siphiwe and Cecilia returns from their trip to provide us with more additional updates. And so we will be rewarded. So, and our voices are being heard. So I just wanted to reiterate that. And just move in peace, be peaceful, because we are a significant stakeholder, which is what Cecilia mentioned earlier. Our voices matter. And so we want you all to have a great evening and continue to share the survey, the plebiscite survey, and join our WhatsApp group so that you can get a link to the recording for tonight's call. And I will conclude there. Any other comments or from Siphiwe or Cecilia? Anything else? No?
We're good now.
Just
Okay.
sending love and light, sending love and light. We love you.
Love and likes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So we're going to let Cecilia and Siphiwe get their rest. Until we meet again, you all have a wonderful evening. Have a good night. Okay.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good morning.
Good night. Peace.
Good morning.
Congratulations.